Commander Zia's mandibles clicked nervously as she paced the length of the diplomatic station's main corridor. The Cathari delegation had arrived 3 standard hours ago, and already there was a crisis. 2 of their cubs, barely past their first molting, had vanished without a trace. Any sign of them on the internal sensors? She asked her second-in-command, Lieutenant Vex, whose scales had shifted to an anxious purple hue. Nothing, Commander. It's as if they simply disappeared. The Cathari were apex predators from a death world that made most galactic species' nightmares seem like pleasant dreams. Standing nearly 3 meters tall with razor-sharp claws, rows of serrated teeth, and reflexes that could track a plasma bolt in flight, they were the kind of beings that made even seasoned military personnel nervous. Their cubs, while smaller, were no less dangerous, capable of shredding through most materials with their developing talons. The thought of 2 missing Cathari cubs loose on a diplomatic station filled Zia with dread. If they were frightened or felt threatened, they could easily kill someone before their parents could intervene. Worse, if something had happened to them, the Cathari might interpret it as an act of war. "Ma'am," came a voice from behind her. "The human liaison is here." Zia turned to see Elsa Martinez approaching, her soft-soled boots making barely a whisper against the metal flooring. The human moved with that peculiar grace her species possessed. Not the lightning-quick reflexes of a predator, or the cautious steps of prey, but something else entirely. Something that had puzzled xenobiologists for decades since humanity's introduction to the galactic community. "Commander," Elsa said with a slight nod, "I heard about the missing cubs. The parents must be beside themselves. Matriarch Kess is contained for now," Zia replied carefully. "But if we don't find her offspring soon, she may decide to conduct her own search. With claws." Elsa's expression grew thoughtful.
Have you checked the lower levels?
Small beings tend to seek out small spaces when they're overwhelmed. "We've searched everywhere," Lieutenant Vex interjected, his scales now a deeper shade of worried purple. "Environmental systems, cargo holds, even the ventilation ducts. Though I'm not sure how anything larger than a maintenance drone could fit in there." Elsa mused. "What about my office? It's on sub-level 3 near the Cultural Exchange Wing." Zia's antennae twitched. "Why would they go there?" "Well," Elsa said, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth, "human spaces tend to be different. We build them to our scale, not to galactic standard. Lower ceilings, smaller furniture, more enclosed feeling. To a small being in a big, scary place, it might feel safer. It was worth investigating." The 3 of them made their way through the station's corridors, past the towering architecture designed to accommodate the galaxy's larger species. When they reached Elsa's office, Zia had to admit the human had a point. The space felt intimate, almost cozy, with its lower ceiling and human-scaled furniture. "I don't see anything," Vex reported, running his scanner over the room. Elsa held up a hand for silence. In the quiet, they could hear it, a soft chittering sound like leaves rustling in a gentle breeze. It was coming from under Elsa's desk. The human woman crouched down and peered beneath the furniture. Her face lit up with an expression Zia had learned to recognize as uniquely human, that mixture of amusement and affection they showed toward small, harmless things. "Well, hello there," Elsa said softly. Zia knelt beside her and looked under the desk. What she saw defied every expectation she'd had about Cathari behavior. The 2 missing cubs, each the size of a human child but equipped with claws that could rend steel, were curled up against Elsa's boots. Not attacking them, not trying to escape, but using them as pillows. One cub had wrapped its tiny arms around the toe of her left boot, while the other had burrowed against the heel of her right. "I don't understand," Zia whispered. "They're apex predators. They should be terrified or aggressive, not cuddling." Elsa's voice remained soft and calm. "They're babies, Commander. Scared babies in a strange place. And my boots?" She paused, seeming to consider her words. "Human scent is different from most species. We're persistence predators, not ambush hunters. Our smell doesn't trigger fight-or-flight responses the same way. To them, I probably smell safe." Lieutenant Vex's scales had shifted to an amazed yellow. "How do we get them out without causing a panic?" "Very carefully," Elsa replied. She began making soft clicking sounds with her tongue, remarkably similar to Cathari communication patterns. The cubs' heads lifted, their large eyes focusing on her face. What happened next would become the stuff of legend in diplomatic circles for years to come. Elsa slowly extended her hands, palms up, and the cubs, these perfect killing machines that had the entire station in lockdown, crawled forward and allowed themselves to be picked up. "There we go," she murmured, cradling one cub while the other perched on her shoulder. "Let's get you back to your mama, shall we?" When they returned to the main level, Matriarch Kess took one look at her offspring nestled safely in the human's arms and made a sound Zia had never heard from a Cathari before, something like a purr mixed with a sigh of relief. "How?" the matriarch asked, her translator struggling with the emotion in her voice. Elsa gently transferred the cubs back to their parent. "They just needed someone who understood that being small doesn't make you any less important," she said simply. Later, after the Cathari delegation had settled in and the cubs were safely tucked away in their quarters, Zia found herself in Elsa's office again, staring at those unremarkable boots. "How did you know?" she asked. Elsa looked up from her reports. "Know what?" "That they would be drawn to your scent. That they wouldn't see you as a threat." The human woman leaned back in her chair, considering the question. "You know what makes humans unusual in the galactic community, Commander? We're not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest, but we're the only species that actively seeks out other species young to protect and nurture, even when they're not our own, even when they're dangerous." She gestured to her boots. "Every human carries the scent of a caretaker. Those cubs didn't smell a predator or prey when they found me. They smelled someone who would keep them safe. And in a galaxy full of dangers, sometimes that's the most powerful weapon of all." Zia looked at the human with new understanding. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy was growing, but not for the reasons most species achieved recognition. They weren't conquerors or technological marvels or ancient civilizations. They were something perhaps more remarkable, a species that saw the universe not as a place to dominate, but as a place full of children who needed someone to keep them safe. As she left Elsa's office, Zia made a mental note to update her report to headquarters. The humans weren't just another species to monitor. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. And perhaps something it desperately needed. Behind her, she could hear Elsa returning to her paperwork. Those soft-soled boots resting quietly under her desk, ready for the next small being who needed a safe place to hide.